Basement Archive in Rome, there is a stone tablet that has been broken for 2,000 years. Half the words are missing. The edges are worn to dust. Generations of historians have stared at this fragment and argued over what it once said, who carved it, when they carved it, and what the missing words meant. Some scholars spent entire careers debating a single gap in a single line. In July 2025, Google DeepMind fed a photograph of that stone into an artificial intelligence called Aeneas. In under a minute, the AI predicted every missing word, identified the province where the stone was carved, dated it to within 13 years of the actual date, and then showed its work by pulling parallel inscriptions from a database of 176,000 ancient texts that no single human could ever hold in memory. But here is the part that made historians physically stop talking. When Aeneas analyzed a broken military diploma from the island of Sardinia, it restored the missing text by finding a hidden linguistic connection to a completely separate votive altar located 1,500 kilometers away in Mainz, Germany, a link that had eluded every human scholar for centuries. This is the story of how artificial intelligence cracked open the ancient world and why the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. 2,000 years of broken stones. To understand what Aeneas did, you need to understand the problem it was built to solve. The Roman Empire left behind more written records than any civilization in antiquity. Decrees, tomb epitaphs, business transactions, military records, dedications to gods, all carved into stone, bronze, and ceramics across 3 continents. These are not history written by the victors. These are words left by ordinary people across every social class. And approximately 1,500 new inscriptions are unearthed globally every single year. The problem is that almost all of them are broken. Letters are missing, entire lines have weathered away, names are illegible, dates are gone, and the only way to reconstruct what those gaps once said is a discipline called Epigraphy, where a human scholar manually searches through thousands of other inscriptions looking for similar phrasing, similar grammar, similar formulas that might suggest what the missing words were. A single scholar might spend decades cross-referencing fragments, and the total database of known Latin inscriptions now contains over 176,000 texts and more than 16 million individual characters spanning from the 7th century BC to the 8th century AD. No human brain can hold that in memory. No human lifetime is long enough to search it all. That is the problem Aeneas was built to destroy. How Aeneas works. Aeneas was announced on July 23, 2025, in a landmark publication in the journal Nature, a collaboration between Google DeepMind, the University of Nottingham, and several other academic institutions. It is the successor to an earlier AI called Ithaca, which handled Greek inscriptions. Aeneas was built specifically for Latin, and it does 3 things no previous system could do simultaneously. First, restoration. Aeneas predicts missing text in damaged inscriptions. But unlike earlier models that required you to tell the AI exactly how many letters were missing, Aeneas can handle gaps of completely unknown length. You give it a broken stone with an arbitrary void, and it fills in the words. Second, geographic attribution. Aeneas identifies which of 62 ancient Roman provinces the inscription most likely originated from, using both the text patterns and a photograph of the physical stone. Third, chronological attribution. It dates the inscription based on linguistic drift, the subtle shifts in grammar, vocabulary, and syntax that evolved across centuries of Roman administration. The architecture is multimodal. A deep T5 transformer processes character-level text, while a separate vision neural network analyzes photographs of the physical stone. Both streams feed into 3 specialized output heads. To build this system, researchers trained Aeneas on the Latin epigraphic dataset, an aggregation of 3 massive databases containing 176,861 inscriptions and over 16 million characters dating from the 7th century BC to the 8th century AD. And critically, Aeneas is not a black box. It shows its reasoning by ranking the historical parallels it used via cosine similarity, meaning a human scholar can see exactly which other inscriptions the AI drew from. It is transparent, interpretable, and auditable. The jaw-dropping moments. In one benchmark test, DeepMind ran Aeneas against the Res Gestae Divi Augusti, the autobiographical inscription of Emperor Augustus himself. This text has weathered significantly over 2 millennia, leaving gaps that sparked decades of intense scholarly debate over whether it was composed just before 1 BC or later in the 1st century AD. Aeneas analyzed the linguistic patterns and produced a highly confident dating peak between 10 and 20 CE, pulling contextual parallels from imperial legal texts tied to Augustus's legacy. But the moment that stopped historians cold was the Sardinian military diploma. Aeneas analyzed a fragmentary Latin document from the island and restored the missing text by discovering hidden linguistic similarities to a completely separate votive altar located in Mogontiacum, modern-day Mainz, Germany, a connection spanning 1,500 kilometers that no human scholar had ever identified. One member of the research team admitted, "Those were jaw-dropping moments for us." Then came the head-to-head. DeepMind ran a controlled study with 23 expert human epigraphers in a real-world simulation. Working alone, human scholars produced dating estimates with an average deviation of 31 years. Aeneas alone narrowed that margin to 13 years. But the most profound result was collaborative. Historians using Aeneas as a research tool found its retrieved parallels useful in 90% of cases and reported a 44% boost in their confidence on epigraphic tasks. The AI did not replace the humans. It made them dramatically better. The Scrolls. A parallel revolution. Now here is where the story spirals deeper, because Aeneas is not the only AI cracking open the ancient world. While DeepMind was training its model on stone inscriptions, a completely separate revolution was unfolding inside carbonized papyrus scrolls buried under volcanic ash for nearly 2,000 years. In 79 AD, the eruption of Mount Vesuvius entombed the Roman town of Herculaneum, flash carbonizing the massive library of a building called the Villa of the Papyri.
The library itself has not been excavated like this.
No, not.
Over 1,800 of these coal-black papyrus scrolls survive today. But for centuries, every attempt to physically unroll them turned the paper to dust. The contents were locked inside objects that could not be opened. In 2015, computer scientist Brent Seals pioneered non-invasive virtual unwrapping using high-resolution X-ray CT scanning, reading the ink inside the sealed layers without ever touching the scroll. In March 2023, he launched the Vesuvius Challenge, crowdsourcing the machine learning effort with $1 million in prize money. And between late 2023 and early 2024, a team of student researchers, Luc Farator, Youssef Nader, and Julian Schilliger, claimed the $700,000 grand prize by developing algorithms that detected and deciphered carbon ink deep within the sealed layers. The recovered text was a previously unknown work of Epicurean philosophy, likely by Philodemus of Gadara, discussing the nature of pleasure, scarcity, and food. A philosophical text that no living human had read in 2,000 years, decoded by college students using machine learning. The limits and the skeptics. Not everyone is celebrating without caveats. Independent researchers have flagged strict limitations. While Aeneas handles standardized administrative formulas exceptionally well, it struggles with restoring proper names and numbers, the highly unique regional data that does not follow predictable patterns. And because the model relies on a database of 176,000 inscriptions, large for epigraphy, but tiny compared to modern large language models, it cannot deduce entirely novel insights. It functions by recombining and comparing existing known parallels. If the answer is not somewhere in the training data, Aeneas cannot invent it. The Vesuvius Challenge faces its own barriers. Reading carbon ink inside carbonized papyrus remains extraordinarily difficult at scale.
Specifically for the shape, so the real scroll has to be oriented, right, in exactly this position so that it'll go in there just as it should.
The 2024 grand prize decoded passages from a single scroll. Hundreds more remain sealed. And both the Herculaneum scrolls and the Latin epigraphy corpus grow every year. 1,500 new inscriptions annually, plus the painstaking scanning of additional scrolls. The data pipeline is accelerating faster than any human team could process manually. The bigger picture. Here is what makes this story genuinely strange. We are living in a moment where two separate AI systems, built by different teams, using different techniques, applied to different physical media, are simultaneously unlocking the same lost civilization. Aeneas reads the stones, the Vesuvius algorithms read the scrolls, Together, they are recovering the written record of the ancient world at the speed of computation. DeepMind has made Aeneas freely available at predictingthepast.com, open sourcing the code and the dataset, mirroring the same open access strategy they used with AlphaFold for protein folding. The philosophy is the same. Position AI not as an autonomous replacement for human expertise, but as an indispensable navigational tool for managing overwhelming datasets that no individual could process alone.
The history of the unwrapping of the Herculaneum scrolls is littered with failures. Everyone who had tried to open the scrolls had left behind a hideous trail of fragmentary result.
The team plans to extend the model to other ancient languages and scripts, potentially including ancient Greek papyri, Etruscan texts, and even coinage. They are also integrating Aeneas with large-scale dialogue models to create interactive conversational workflows for researchers. Meanwhile, the Vesuvius challenge is scaling up in 2026, transitioning from single passages to reading multiple entire scrolls. With hundreds of scrolls still buried at Herculaneum and thousands of inscription fragments scattered across the former Roman Empire, these AI systems are positioned to systematically recover entire lost libraries. Dr. Thea Summershield, who co-developed Aeneas at the University of Nottingham, captured the scale of the ambition. The inscriptions are vital because they are written by the ancient people themselves across all social classes. This is not a tool for replacing historians. It is a tool for giving historians access to connections that would take lifetimes to find manually. So let's spiral back to where we started. A broken stone tablet sitting in a basement archive. Half the words missing. Generations of scholars arguing over a single gap in a single line. And now an AI that fills in those gaps in under a minute, dates the inscription to within 13 years, pinpoints the province where it was carved, and connects it to a parallel text 1,500 kilometers away that no human had ever linked. Aeneas was trained on 176,000 inscriptions and 16 million characters. It outperforms human experts on dating by 18 years. Historians using it report a 44% confidence boost. And in a parallel revolution, student researchers decoded a 2,000-year-old philosophical text locked inside carbonized papyrus using machine learning, a text that no living human had read since Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD. We are not just reading the past anymore. We are reading the parts of the past that were supposed to be lost forever.